Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today, we're going to be taking a look at AI in finance. But we're not talking about, algorithms picking stocks. It's something a lot more interesting, I think. We're going to be looking at how AI can be used to spot kind of the weird stuff in financial data. And to help us on this journey, we're going to be looking at an article in Paper Jam featuring Elin Howd. She's an AI and business strategist, and she's got some really interesting insights, I think.
Yeah, you know what I think is so interesting about Haga's take on this is she really emphasizes that AI in finance isn't really about predicting the future. It's more about deeply understanding the present. And the way we do that is by zeroing in on the stuff that's just not quite right. It's almost like a financial bloodhound, just sniffing out the unusual.
Okay, so we're not talking about, AI telling us what stocks to buy.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about it helping us see things that we might otherwise miss.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty intriguing, but I got to say it's also a little overwhelming. I mean, there's already so much financial data out there.
Right. And that's actually where Hoja's emphasis on AI as a tool, not a magic solution, is really important. So she makes the point that sometimes, the best approach is good old-fashioned data management, like getting your financial house in order before you even start thinking about, unleashing the power of AI on it.
That makes sense. So, it's not about replacing our existing systems. It's about adding another layer of insight.
Yeah.
But what I thought was really interesting is what she says about consultant-driven AI adoption. She's basically saying that a lot of leaders are jumping on the AI bandwagon,
Mm.
but they're doing it because consultants are telling them to not because they really understand AI.
Yeah, it's like buying the latest gadget without even bothering to read the instructions. You might have this shiny new tool, but are you actually using it to its full potential? And do you even need it in the first place?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It seems like there's a huge potential for misallocated resources or even, really costly mistakes if AI is implemented without a clear strategy. So if we can move beyond just the hype, you know,
Yeah.
what are some actual ways that AI is being used to detect these anomalies?
Well, one area where AI is really effective is in spotting those data points that are statistically off, even if we don't know why yet.
Like those weird little charges on your credit card statement that you can't quite place. AI could be used to spot those before you even notice,
Right.
and that could protect you from fraud.
Exactly. Or imagine AI looking at insurance claims and noticing a weird pattern. That could have a red flag for fraud that would just slip past a human. Because humans are great at spotting patterns, but AI can analyze massive amounts of data, so it's super sensitive to discrepancies.
This is where it gets really fascinating to me. It's like AI is giving us a sixth sense, you know, a way to perceive these financial whispers that we might otherwise miss.
I think that's a great way to put it. Howge is arguing that it's this ability to spot the outliers that makes AI really valuable in finance. It's not about replacing human judgment. It's about enhancing it, making us more aware and attuned to risks and opportunities.
So AI can help us go through all that data and find those anomalies, but
Yeah.
doesn't that also mean we're losing something in the process?
Right.
Like if AI is telling us what's weird, are we losing our own ability to understand, all those nuances in the data?
That's a great question, and it gets to, one of the big trade-offs Howge talks about. The speed and efficiency of AI versus really understanding the data like you get with traditional statistics.
So it's like getting the answer without knowing the formula. I
Yeah.
mean, you might get the right answer, but you don't really learn anything.
Right? It's like using a GPS. I mean, sure, it'll get you where you need to go, but you don't really get to know the city. And in finance, you really need to understand what's driving those trends.
Especially when there's so much money at stake.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where this whole black box problem comes in. AI can be great at finding answers, but it can't really tell you how it got there.
So it's like having a financial advisor who gives you great stock picks, but can't tell you why. It might work for a while, but sooner or later, you're going to want to know how they're making those decisions.
Right. So Hausch talks about how people are developing heat maps. It's a way to kind of visualize how the AI is working and making its decisions.
So instead of just getting an answer, we can actually see how the AI got there.
Yeah.
So how do these heat maps actually work?
Well, think about a weather map. You know how it shows areas of high and low pressure? A heat map for AI is kind of similar. It shows you which factors are really important in driving a certain outcome. It doesn't show you the whole algorithm, but it gives you a much better idea of how the AI reached its conclusion.
That's a great analogy. So instead of just blindly trusting the AI, you can see how it made its decision. And that seems really important in finance, especially with all the new regulations about transparency and AI.
You're right, the regulations are definitely changing fast. Especially for what they consider high-risk applications, regulators want to make sure that AI is being used responsibly and that the decisions can be explained.
And that goes back to Haga's main point. AI in finance isn't about replacing humans. It's about helping us see the world differently.
It's like giving us a financial sixth sense.
These institutions are dealing with mountains of data every day. There's no way a human team could go through all that and look for these anomalies. But AI can be that watchdog, sniffing out anything unusual that could be fraud or risk or even new opportunities.
And Hodge gives some really interesting examples, like micro-tariffing individual risk levels in insurance or, using AI to detect fraudulent claims.
Or even just flagging a credit card transaction that's way outside your normal spending. Makes you think twice about that trip to the Bahamas, right?
Definitely. This ability to detect outliers is so valuable in a world with this much data. It helps us see the things that are hidden in plain sight.
But that raises an interesting question, though, right? Like, if AI is always pointing out these anomalies, does that change what we think of as normal? Does our definition of unusual start to shift? I mean, it seems like AI being able to find all this weird stuff could really change how we think about what's normal. Like what we used to think was unusual might become totally normal as
Yeah.
AI shows us these patterns we never even noticed.
Yeah, I mean, as we rely more and more on AI to flag these anomalies, our sense of what's an outlier could definitely change.
So what does that mean for our financial decision making? Will we become more risk averse? More sensitive to little changes?
It's possible. Imagine getting an alert for every tiny change in your spending. It might make people more anxious or rely too much on AI to tell them what to do. But there's also a potential upside.
Oh,
Maybe this awareness will actually make us more adaptable. We might get better at spotting trends and reacting to change as the financial world changes so fast. Instead of clinging to old ideas of what's normal, we could be more agile with our financial decisions.
so instead of being afraid of AI, we could use it to make us more powerful. By understanding this weirdness, we can really understand what's happening in our financial world.
That's a great way to put it. Hawke's insights really make us think about our assumptions and look at financial data in a whole new way. AI isn't just about automating things or predicting the future. It's about helping us see the world differently.
And that brings us to the big question. How can we use all this in our own personal finances? I mean, most of us don't have the massive data sets that these big institutions have. But this idea of finding anomalies still applies to us, right?
Absolutely. Our own financial lives create tons of data. Every transaction, every bill payment, every online purchase leaves a trace. And there are hidden patterns in that data. Some are pretty boring, but some can tell us a lot.
So how do we become these weirdness detectors with our own money?
We'll start by actually looking at your bank statements, your
Yeah.
credit card bills, all that stuff. Don't just look at the totals. Really look at each transaction and see if anything seems out of place.
So we're all becoming financial detectives now. What kind of clues should we be looking for?
Anything different from your normal spending? A really big purchase? A charge you don't recognize, a payment to a company you've never heard of? Those are all red flags.
And what should we do if we find something suspicious?
Call your bank or your credit card company right away. They have teams that investigate fraud and billing errors. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Are there any other tools that can help us find this weirdness?
A lot of personal finance apps use AI to analyze your spending and flag anything unusual. They can be really helpful for finding subscriptions you forgot about or seeing when you're spending way more than usual in certain categories.
That's great advice. So by paying attention and using the right tools, we can get a much better handle on our finances.
Exactly. And while you probably won't find some big conspiracy in your bank account, you might be surprised by what you do find.
Maybe we'll find a subscription we can cancel, or a bill we can negotiate down, or even a mistake that saves us some money.
The main takeaway is this. If we start thinking like AI and looking for weirdness, we'll have more control over our money. We'll be more proactive, more careful, and better at making good decisions.
So next time we're looking at our statements, let's remember what we talked about today. Let's begin you. Those financial detectives. Look for the weird stuff, ask questions, and never assume anything.
It's not just about managing your money, it's about really understanding your finances and using data to make smarter choices.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you learned something about AI and finance. We hope you're feeling inspired to use these ideas in your own financial journey. Until next time, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the most interesting things are hiding in the most unexpected places.